So I want to introduce you all to Bill Upson. He has been a financial advisor and an insurance agent since 1986. Bill has been a member of the top 1% of the insurance industry for the past 15 years in a row. He has been a featured speaker at financial planning conferences, insurance industry events, and as a speaker for charities and public corporations. He has spoken on radio, television, and done extensive webinars over the past 7 years. He has also been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, local San Francisco newspapers, and in many magazine and online publications over the years. He is also the author of the book Pathways to Financial Freedom and the author of Long-Term Care, Alternatives and Solutions, which his talk is based off of today. So please join me in giving Bill a warm welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Can I be heard okay? Everybody can hear me? Thank you very much for having me join you today. I'm very pleased to be here. I don't have a slide presentation. You have the materials that were handed out to you. And what I want to do today is to take some of the pages from the book on long-term care and try to provide you with some bullet points or some ideas that might be of benefit to you as you go through this process of trying to figure out what is best under your set of circumstances, whether for purposes of insurance, financial planning, taxation. Those types of issues are the things that I deal with every day. I am not an attorney. I am a financial advisor, and I am an author. The 2 books I've written are sold all over the world, especially the long-term care book. And I would tell you after this presentation today that if you have an interest in the book, I can provide you with access to it online so you can get an e-book downloadable to your computer, your iPad, that type of a service. Currently it's on Amazon and on Kindle. By the end of this month it'll be on iTunes. I will tell you that the book is dated because we've not had a chance to update it over the past few years. We're in the process of doing that right now, and it should be done by the end of this year. Whenever you have questions that don't seem to be properly answered from the book, we have an 800 number. You can call us and get answers. You can email us. You can go to our websites, of which we have 4. My 800 number, nationwide and in Canada, is 800-765-0561. And I'm not sure that you're going to find it on these pages, but you will find one of our websites which does have it. On page, certainly, the number is 800-765-0561. Thank you. And on some of the pages, the information is provided. I didn't realize that Becky had done such a great job that she even copied the back of the book for me. So it is there. But also we have one website called longtermcarebooks.com, and that's noted throughout the book. And that particular website has roughly 400 questions and answers that people frequently have, where you can find a lot of additional information. We also have the ability to give you quoting capability so you can get a quotation for long-term care, for life insurance, for disability. And if you have special situations like Parkinson's, we can be of help there too. Now, back in December, I had a person call me, 57 years of age, and she had seen me on 7 different websites over the past few months and seen me speak here, and also I spoke at another conference for a public company here in San Jose. And she said to me, we want to come by and see you, and we want you to take care of a problem. It happens frequently. She came in a week later with her husband. After a 2-hour conversation, they decided I was the person that could fix their problem. What it came down to was both of them, being very young people, never expected to have this kind of a situation happen. He got Parkinson's. And now he has other illnesses quickly coming into that entire mix. So they wanted to find a long-term care solution, and they quite frankly were going to be one of my toughest cases. But over the course of a 4-month period of time, working with regulators in my industry, working with compliance people in my companies, and figuring out a solution that nobody had been able to figure out, we were able to get this man close to $1 million of long-term care protection. Now, I don't tell you that story to impress you. I tell you that story that if you have a good financial advisor, share your situation with them and give them a chance to truly help you. Because I've done this for 30 years, I know the answers. In roughly 75–80% of the cases, I can figure out some kind of a solution. Over the past 9 months, we worked with a company in the San Jose area, public company, 2,700 U.S. employees, 3,500 outside the United States. During the course of our work with them, they were trying to replace an existing long-term care company that no longer was in the marketplace, and their employees were seeing significant rate increases. Over the past 6 months, we've been able to install a program, and we have covered people with cancer, with heart disease, 2 people in wheelchairs, people that I would never have thought we could cover. We got them guaranteed issue. Every single situation is unique, just as every one of you are. And we want to take the time to try and help you through this process. I have other agents I work with around the United States, and as a financial advisor, all of these years in the business, I truly know good advisors from people who are just trying to take your money. And you need that kind of help these days because it is so easy to get easily misunderstood. So if you want somebody from another part of the country to help you because you have a family member with a problem, please still consider calling us, okay? Due to time, I want to go through this as quickly as I can. Take a look at pages 2 and 3. I don't think I have to say a great deal about this because I think everybody in this room is dealing with these kinds of issues right now. But when I wrote the book 12 years ago, there really was no publication out there that spoke to the kind of issues that are in our books today. And I will tell you this, I became intimately acquainted with being a caregiver and a person overseeing a family because my father, who had been the budget director for the state of New Hampshire for more than 20 years, in retirement, had a stroke that blinded him instantly. And my mother called to tell me that sad news, and he was in the hospital. And the important news was she was calling to tell me on April 14th that he wanted me to come by and do his income tax return. I'm in California. They're in New Hampshire. I tried to explain that to a woman who had never done more than touch a checkbook. I hope that you don't get caught in those kinds of circumstances. Because when I went and spoke with them, I couldn't believe what my father had not done. He had handled magnificently the state of New Hampshire. He had handled investing his money very well. But he had no insurance. Medical insurance, but no long-term care insurance. And that's when I got educated. Because through that process, I had to figure out ways to find solutions. On page 6, and I think you'll find these pages are running the same numbers that I'm going to refer to here. If you look at the bottom of each page, you will see them. Page 6 talks about family care, long-term care as a family issue. And the reason I brought this page up is because it is not just happening to people in their 60s and 70s and 80s. The second largest group of people in skilled nursing facilities today are between 18 and 33. Now, Linda may find the numbers are different, but that's what I've been told. And the reason is they smoke, they do drugs, they drive excessively fast, they do extreme sports, and sometimes they do them all at the same time. Okay? And I used to be a police officer, so I know exactly of what I speak when you see these young people trying to do these things. On page 19, I just want to point out to you as we go through this book and update it and change the information, we note there that the daily deductible down towards the bottom of the page, I should have brought my glasses, show at $124 per day. It's currently $144.50 per day. And that means days 21 through 100, if you are in a skilled nursing facility, out of your pocket will come roughly $11,500. And that tends to increase every year. And I think you'll also find it harder to be in a skilled nursing facility because that is the only benefit that is provided under Medicare. I want to say that again. It's the only long-term care benefit provided by Medicare. Now, there are extreme examples where that's not true, but in general, beyond the 100 days, you're on your own. So having a long-term care policy of some form or some nature is vitally important. And if you've not attended to that issue, talk with your advisor, call us. We're more than happy to see if we can help. Can't guarantee anything, but we've had a very high success rate with numerous illnesses. People who are already retired, people who have their own businesses, people who don't have a working situation. There are lots of ways to look at these problems. If certainly. The question is, we're talking about page 19, and we're talking about days 21 through 100. This is a deductible of which you pay that. The government is paying the balance. It was $124 per day. Because of the years of inflationary adjustment, it is now $144.50 per day. And it would total, if you were in the facility for a full 100 days, $11,500 and change. But who's quibbling over a few $100s? I'm kidding.
After 100 days, you have to pay fully.
Yes, you get to pay after the first 100 days completely. So the question was, who pays after 100 days? You do. Yes, ma'am.
Supplemental care insurance usually covers some of that?
Excellent question. I'm going to repeat the question. Does supplemental care cover that amount of money? If you have a Medicare supplement policy of good quality, it should pick up that deductible amount during that 100-day period. Beyond 100 days, most supplemental insurance policies will not provide a long-term care benefit, no matter what is provided by Medicare or anybody else. Sir?
How do the VA benefits?
VA benefits would take Linda and me about 4 or 5 days to handle in terms of explanation, because she may understand it better than I do. I have to be honest with you, it is an area that I have tried to speak to generally. I had a client who was sprayed with Agent Orange as a captain of Rangers in Vietnam during the war. And as a consequence, I kept going back to him as a 64-year-old saying, why don't you talk to the Veterans Administration? Well, he had significant wealth, and he felt that was not something that he'd be entitled to. So, because I kept prodding him, finally he went in 3 times. And they finally told him no. And 4 months later, he gets a letter from the Veterans Administration he expects confirming what he had learned. And they said, you are now entitled to $2,970 a month for the rest of your life, plus medical benefits, plus access to long-term care, and aid and benefit based on the site that Linda had put up. So I would encourage you, if you have a military connection, to go that extra mile, to keep pushing to find out exactly what those solutions might be in your set of circumstances. Okay? Hope that answered your question, sir. The next page, if I haven't lost my place, is page 30. I should put these down. On page 30, we talk in terms of Medicaid and Medi-Cal. Medicaid and Medi-Cal are the federal program for those who need services and do not have the money to pay for them under any circumstances. You go through a rigorous process of being processed in before they will allow the government to pay. And the government wants you to spend your money down so that you have roughly about $2,000 of cash. You're allowed a life insurance policy with $1,500 of death benefit. You're allowed to keep your home. How you pay for your home after they brought you down to that level is something most people can't figure out. But they will then take you in, and they will pay. And they will put a lien against your house. And they will get the house. When you pass away and your spouse has passed away, neither one of you are living in the house. Now, if you have a disabled child, I believe they make an exception to that, as long as that child is alive. Now, a lot of planning out there today, and I use that in a very big sense, is about how to avoid getting taken by the government, all of your assets away, putting the assets somewhere else. In the last few years, the government has simply said, we'll make it easy. We're going to look back for 5 years from the date of claim. Not when you created your trust, but from the date of claim. And if you want to give away all of your assets 5 years before to your children, who you know are going to keep that money safe for you, going through divorces, second marriages, possible car accidents, that's okay. I can tell you, don't do that. Yes, ma'am.
If you have a life insurance policy that's in a life insurance trust, is that exempt?
If it's in an irrevocable insurance trust, it may be. Okay, the circumstances really have to be examined by a qualified estate planning attorney. If they're in your family trust or your revocable trust, they are part of your estate. Okay. Excellent. Okay. That's very important. We will have, the next time we speak, an elder law attorney who is one of the best in the country. Unfortunately, he's speaking in Kansas City today. I couldn't get him on a screen so he could talk to both groups at the same time. But he'll be with us the next time. Also, I would point out to you that there are so many different sets of family circumstances today, it'd be impossible to address them all. But I came across a situation when I was in Pennsylvania about 4 months ago where I'd covered these two men in wheelchairs. And it turned out that why they were not only concerned for themselves, they were still working full-time, but I set them up with $6,000 a month in benefits plus a 5% inflationary growth on that benefit. And their real concern was they knew in the state of Pennsylvania that if they ran out of money and the state took care of them and there was nothing left, the filial responsibility law in the state of Pennsylvania would go back against their children and require the money, would go after the money. And when I heard it, I was stunned. I'd never heard of this before. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, Linda. But the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania upheld that law against a child who had put his mother in a facility and thought he was scot-free. And they went after him and they collected. Now, you think I'm talking about Pennsylvania? 30 states in this country today have these. I believe California does too. California does not. I stand corrected. It's good to have authority in the room. Next page is 31. This page talks in terms of who pays for long-term care. If you're not aware of it already, the government is working very hard to reduce their percentage of the pie. You might not have known that, but they are working in that direction. Under Obamacare, I'm not politically being positive or negative here, one aspect of the program was to create a long-term care product, a program, a way of providing for Americans who needed long-term care. After a year and a half of trying to structure something, the director of that entire program quit. He said, there is no way we can ever fund this. No benefits were going to be paid until 2016, and very limited benefits at that point in time. You were going to be paying into it for a number of years. It wouldn't hold itself up. Now, if you think it's just the federal government having this problem, the state of California, in their wisdom about 10 years ago, created their own long-term care product for CalPERS and STRS employees. Those are government employees of the state of California. And they created a very fine product, and the product itself was roughly 30 to 40% less expensive than commercial products from regular insurance companies. They stopped selling those in 2007. They had 150,000 people covered. Largest program in the country. I'm sorry, not in the country, but based on that kind of a program. In the first 5 years of the program's existence, they raised rates 100%. And as of 2 weeks ago, they announced in the Sacramento Bee that they were considering a rate increase of 75%. The board said, no, we're not going to do that. They voted an 85% rate increase. So the reality is the government can't fix this problem. We have to fix it ourselves. We have to figure out how to take care of these issues. And I can't give you easy answers, but I can only help you where the possibilities are. Try to get you covered. Try to get you protected. Try to make sure your financial and legal documents are in shape so that you can do the best under the circumstances. On page 36, we addressed a few moments ago skilled care. Skilled care in this country today, paid for by the government, paid for by Medicare, I shouldn't say the government, by Medicare, covers roughly 0.5% of all of the costs for Medicare. I'm sorry, all of the costs for long-term care. Let me say it again. Skilled care represents 0.5% of all of the Medicare, all of the long-term care expenses out there. So as a consequence, 99.5% of the cost for long-term care, home care, nursing care, acute care, any kind of care, is paid for by some other entity, a person, a company, but it is not paid for by Medicare. And you can see the different categories on that page. Page 37, here we're talking about just buying a long-term care policy with a 5% long-term care inflation rider. And what it is simply doing is taking up the value of your daily benefit for nursing home, for home care, at a compounded 5% rate. Always recommend that my clients do something like that. It is more expensive, but the cost of long-term care in this country today is going up 7 to 8% per year. So we're just trying to keep up with what's already happening. You don't want to buy a policy with a fixed amount. This policy's 10, 15 years ago where you bought $3,000 a month in benefit, $100 a day. Most facilities, as Linda showed you, are running $5,000 to $10,000 a month. That's 2 to 3 times what those fixed policies will provide.
And the semi-private room in one of the local care facilities is $278 a day, which is about $8,000, a little over $8,000 a month.
The comment up here is the cost for a semi-private room is running $278 per day. So those are the numbers. Page 42, I had one of my clients years ago say that she was 67. She thought, I'm in good shape. My family was in good shape. They lasted until they're 90, so I'll take out the coverage when I turn 80. So I sat down and I went through a little scenario with her, and I said, basically, I said, and look at age 65. I said, if you were 65 and we got a policy for you that cost $2,938, roughly $3,000 a year, and it gave you the benefits that I've described, you would, over the next 16 years, pay in $47,000. $47,000 today represents about 4 to 6 months in a nursing home or a home care situation. Because home care is not any cheaper. Services are brought to you. It's just how much can you afford to pay. And these policies provide care at home as well as nursing facilities. Page 83. For those of you who are in a healthy situation,
83 or 63?
63, thank you. Got to put those glasses on more and more often. We talk about life insurance with long-term care riders because so many of the insurance companies concerning their long-term care products and their mix of those kinds of policies in force, they have been raising rates pretty aggressively. Rates have gone up anywhere from 10 to 30% in some cases, in others over 100%. And they're going to keep doing that because fewer people are buying them because they know that this is going to happen. And they're concerned about the companies being around in the future to provide the benefits. They did 3 things wrong when they created these products. They assumed, much like term insurance, that 3 to 5% of the people who were insured would drop off as the years went by. So they'd have premium coming in and never pay a claim. Secondly, they created such robust Cadillac-type policies that they had no way of knowing if they could afford to truly fund those into the future. And third, they never expected interest rates to go to zero. So their return on their money is unpredictable, and they cannot fund these without increasing premiums. Well, as they now increase premiums and people drop off, that's a solution. Is it good for you and me? No. But it's the way they've been handling it. In the state of California, Department of Insurance has supported companies going through these rate increases because they don't want the companies to go bankrupt. So life insurance with a long-term care rider does this. It simply says, we know what our risk is. They've been doing life insurance for 150 years. We know that we have to pay a certain number of death benefit claims out of a population in a given year. And we can underwrite the long-term care portion of that risk by simply saying we will provide X amount of benefit. So as an example, if you took out a $500,000 policy, $500,000, you could get up to $1 million of long-term care benefit. So if you went in and started using the long-term care benefit, met the federal standard, 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, you can get an amount of money based on the death benefit paid to you every month, tax-free, for home care, nursing care, all of the things that are in that universe of care needs. And as far as life with long-term care goes, they can't raise rates. Have you ever heard of a life insurance company raising rates on a life policy? The internal cost can go up a little bit, but it's something that you can handle. We're talking maybe a 5% increase over the life of the policy. But you have a product you can count on being there because they're from the best companies in the country, and they know exactly what they're underwriting. Yes, ma'am. The question is, do they cover people with Parkinson's? It depends on the circumstances. If we can figure out a way to get you through the underwriting process, it may be possible. I cannot say yes or no to it because I've been surprised. We've covered quite a few people with this illness as well as many others that I never would have thought we could have covered. The next page, I'm sorry, it is the next page. Page 64. Everybody go with 64? Page 64 talks about annuity contracts. Annuity contracts constantly get a bad rap in the newspapers because they're expensive. But for many people in America today, they are not as expensive as having their accounts drop 10, 20, 30% invested in the stock market. The internal cost of an annuity contract is the insurance element. For 1.5% to 2%, they are ensuring that you give them $100,000, they're going to give you back $100,000 plus growth. And they guarantee that growth rate over time. We have annuity contracts that are available here in California that have a long-term care rider on it. It's attached to the product, and here's the beauty. There is no underwriting. Now, I was saying earlier, and I can't remember if I said it to you or if I was talking to Linda, but a gentleman came in recently and had Parkinson's. And the upstart was we were able to get him almost $1 million of protection by using an annuity contract. So everybody has a different set of circumstances, but again, it may be a possibility to help you during this time. Page 67, I want to bring this up so that you're aware of it, that you at least know about it. If you're looking at some other investment that over the years has grown substantially for you, and you think it will do a great job in terms of taking care of your retirement needs and also possibly long-term care, be very careful about how you handle that asset. Because this happened to a person here in the San Jose area, and I could not believe how much money he basically lost in the process of selling off, I believe it was an apartment house at the time, through a charitable trust, trying to take care of these issues, and both he and his wife wound up destitute. Page 76 is a trademarked statement on my part, because we're insuring your IRA account. Now, it's not some mystical thing that I've created. It's simply sitting down and looking at a IRA and saying, let's assume that it's $1 million in there. And you're counting as a husband and wife on taking $100,000 or $50,000, whatever the amount is, for a certain number of years into the future. Most likely it should be around 50. if it's $1 million IRA account. But the one thing you don't stop to think about is, what happens if I have a long-term care event? Where am I going to get the money if that's where all the money is? If you had to take out another $50,000 to $100,000 a year for you or your spouse or both of you, that's all taxable money coming out, and the tax rate keeps inching up as you take more. Now, the offset is you have long-term care expenses. They most likely are deductible, so that's a small positive. But at the end of the day, you've got an account that quite easily could disappear in 4 or 5 years. What if in the alternative, you said, I'll take $5,000 to $10,000 out of that account every year, pay tax on it, but buy a policy, a life policy with long-term care, a long-term care policy, put the money into an annuity inside the IRA account. You have now got a doubling of value in that product at a minimum, and you've insured your IRA for the future. Not only for yourself, but for your spouse, domestic partner, your children. Does that make sense? Because I see some people kind of looking at me a little strangely.
No.
Okay, let's try an example. Again, let's use $1 million. And let's say you're taking $50,000 a year as supplemental income to your Social Security. And I, as an advisor, recommend you take $60,000 instead of $50,000. The $10,000 gets put into a policy of some type. A long-term care policy, a life with long-term care policy, and those can provide insurance to protect you taking more money out of your IRA account in the future for long-term care purposes. So you have insured the value of the account over time. If you're not insurable, an annuity with a long-term care rider can be purchased inside an IRA and some qualified plans, which would allow you to instantly have the long-term care benefit attached to that policy, so payments coming out in the future would be built up automatically for future value and for future use. Because we don't have much time, I'm not going to go through it more than to say that, but if you have questions, I'm happy to discuss them on the phone. You can email me. We'd be very happy to try and help you with that. By the way, my email address is simply bill@strategicasset.net. I'm not sure if that's on the back of the book also. I think it is. Page 77 actually shows you an example of what I just described. And in the book itself, there are roughly a half a dozen different examples. In addition, when you look at a long-term care purchase, it depends on the type of policy that you're looking at. But if you have a business, it sometimes is possible to get a policy issued where the corporation pays the premiums. You don't report it as a taxable benefit, and the benefits are not reported as taxable income. And when you leave the business, you can take the policy with you. And as long as you pay the premiums, the policy will never be refused in terms of benefits. Page 85 talks about IRA distribution planning. It's extremely important that you think through those kinds of circumstances, because not only are you trying to protect each other, but you need to realize that if you don't handle your IRA account properly, you subject it to immediate income taxation, and if you're under 59.5, potentially a 10% penalty. And if you plan it properly, you can stretch the IRA account over 2 generations, husband and wife and their children. And those, when the parents have passed away, are called inherited IRAs. And they must be very carefully set up, because a lot of advisors do not understand the proper language that has to go into that type of a beneficiary statement. I had a woman just email me 4 days ago. Her attorney and her financial advisor had told her one way to do her father's IRA account, and it cost her and her 2 brothers almost $300,000 in taxes. So even with people who think they know what they're doing, double check that particular issue. I'm part of a group called Ed Slott's IRA Advisor Network. I've worked with Ed for 12 years. He's one of the top CPAs in the United States. He doesn't sell a single product. He just advises and trains us. And I have direct access to him. There are about 5,000 people that spend a lot of money every year getting educated by this man. He speaks constantly. Newspapers, TV. Ed Slott, S-L-O-T-T. On the cover page of my book is a quote from Ed about why you should look at this book. Ed is all over the place. I mean, I've seen him on the Wall Street Journal, the local newspapers. He speaks on all of the public interest radio stations, TV stations. He is the largest fundraiser for the public broadcasting system in the country, raising over $25 million. And he does it just because he's trying to help people understand how serious these issues are. He saved one woman in New York almost $10 million in taxes alone just because she called him before it was too late. That's a huge one. I don't care if it's $10,000. We want to help you wherever we can, and that's one of those things that we can do. Page 135, I'm almost done here. Page 135. We used Japan as an example. I was in the Far East when I first wrote this book about 10 years ago, and I went to one of the U.S. embassies, and I was fascinated by the amount of information that was available when you just started going through the files. And one of the things I learned was that Japan in particular was on the cusp of what was going to happen in the developed industrialized nations. Japan's population topped out roughly about 4 years ago. Topped out means the population is no longer growing. They went roughly from 83 million people in 1950 to about 127 million people a few years ago. The population, they estimate, will be back down around 100 million by the year 2050. Now, why is that important? Because what's happening in Japan is what's happening in a lot of industrial countries. Very well done. You're getting this kind of a function, a funnel. And you've got fewer and fewer people at the bottom working to support more and more retirees. By the year 2100, when most of us most likely will be kind of thinking about things, the bottom line is we'll be looking at a population worldwide that will have probably 25 to 35% over 65 years of age. We have to think about these issues now. In the case of Japan, they have a closed culture. They don't allow a lot of immigration. So as a consequence, they don't have people coming into the workforce to take care of these people. And at the same time, the children who are expected to take care of the parents can no longer do so because they're both working and they just financially can't do it. I don't mean to pick on Japan. It's happening in most countries. The difference here in the United States is one example. We allow immigration, and that helps to bring in those who are willing to take the jobs and to keep building our economy. But when you get into societies where the population growth is dropping, we are going to have problems that we may not be able to handle properly from a financial point of view. So it's just a wake-up call. Get your coverage in place because it may be 2,100 for this kind of problem, but in the next 5-10 years it's going to be really hard to find people of the quality of Linda because her organizations are going to be swamped. They're going to be totally swamped with all of the new participants who are going to need this kind of care. The page 136, I just wanted to point out to you, this organization, Caring Hands, the overseer of this organization, I can't remember her title, but her name is Roxanne Foster. She was a personal friend of mine. I asked her to write this in the book because I wanted an explanation of some of the volunteer services that are out there that people are not aware of. And this organization is tied into John Muir Hospital, and I think it's just John Muir with this one. But I believe there are more than 1,200 of these organizations around the country. So here in San Jose, I'm sure there's something with the same name, but it's just tied into a different hospital. And all they're trying to do is to match older Americans who are healthy and can help out with older Americans who are incapacitated. Take them to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, help them with all of the day-to-day things that happen. So if you're on either side of that equation, I would encourage you to check into that. The last page is the California Partnership for Long-Term Care. It was a finely created product, but it has fallen on hard times because the companies that were part of the program have stepped away from it completely, or they've taken their products off the market and are repricing them because they realize financially they are not working, and they're facing the same kind of problem that the state of California is facing. And I believe, quite honestly, that the program is going to go through some major changes. But if you want that kind of coverage, there are only a few major companies left doing it. One of them is Genworth. Those companies are going to be faced with major rate increases, but the state is going to try and modulate those increases. The benefit is, though, they have asset protection. And whatever is spent in policy benefits will protect your personal assets from being spent down from Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal, again, is California. Medicaid is the federal program. I could go on for, as Linda said, another day or so, but I don't want to create more confusion than necessary right at this point. I would encourage you that if you want the book, we're more than happy to provide it to you. You can get it through the website. We have hardcover copies that you can order. The book will constantly be updated in the future. If you have specific questions, please feel free to call me. Again, it's 800-765-0561.
We got the book online.
You can get our book online from Amazon, from Kindle, and within the next 2 weeks from iTunes. And it sells for about $5. All of the profits go to 7 charities, of which this is one of them. We try very hard to raise money for Parkinson's. A couple of years ago, I was successful in finding a charity that provided funding for some of the ongoing research here. Becky and Chelsea have worked very hard with me. Back in August, I think it was, Mary Tennyson, I'm sorry, back in August, and we submitted another request for funding from this charity. I'm hopeful we'll get that. The more we expose the need for this and get it out to the public, the greater the likelihood the funding will come in to help really push this entire initiative forward. So I would encourage you to really think in terms of what can we do to move Parkinson's away from it ever happening again. I just went through 10 rounds of chemo, folks. And believe me, I'm not on the opposite side of the aisle anymore. I have empathy. I have understanding. And I know what it's like. Believe me, too. Standing on my feet for 45 minutes, I need to sit down. Thank you, Becca.